So, you want to be a real estate investor, but where do you start? How do you know what information and sources to trust? That's where I come in. I'm Jonny Cattani, and this is the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. Hey guys, real quick, before we start, go to investwithcattani.com and download my free ebook, Is Commercial Real Estate Recession Proof? Now to today's show. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jonny Cattani, and I'm joined today by Brett Swarts, helping sellers exit capital gains tax smart using the Deferred Sales Trust, founder, Capital Gains Tax Solutions, Sacramento multifamily broker with eXp Commercial. Brett, welcome to the show.
Jonathan, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Likewise, really excited to get into this. As I mentioned, kind of a topic not a lot of people are talking about, but a very powerful tool that we have in our repertoire as investors. So let's go back real quickly, kind of give us the Reader's Digest version, how you got into the space and specifically DSTs.
Yeah, so I grew up in the real estate world with my family, mom, dad, brother, building custom homes in the Bay Area and having rentals. And so I fell in love with the sticks and bricks of real estate at a young age. Had a chance to go to college, play some college hoops, as well as study I took an internship at a place called Marcus and Millichap, where that began my multifamily career in brokerage and investing and learning all things 1031 exchanges and just falling in love with ways to build wealth with multifamily investment real estate. But it wasn't always great. You know, this is 2006. Things are going pretty good. I was making a little bit of money, getting things going. And then 2008 hit, and I went from making a little bit to like nothing overnight. I don't know if you've ever been in a position where you're afraid and you're scared, you're not sure how you're going to provide for your family, or that's where I was. And at this point, it was really game on because I was graduated from college, and it was a new baby on the way with my wife and I. And we're going, wow, like this is the adult world now. We have to really grow up quick. And so I had a couple options since it was a 100% commission sales job. Go get a real job and get a W-2, or just keep living the entrepreneurial real estate dream in the sense of being a broker. And it's kind of a hybrid. You're not 100%. You're 100% commission, no salary, no benefits, but you do have a lot of support, a lot of mentors to learn from. And so I did a little bit of both. I got a side hustle at a place called Cheesecake Factory on the sides and weekends, and then by days I make cold calls to clients, help them renegotiate with banks, reassess their taxes, and really just kind of assess what went wrong. And it was a humbling experience. We moved my brother to a small condo, and along the way, while they're fighting for their millions, I'm fighting for my thousands, right, to keep the lights on. But they're losing half or everything. And so we both going through a financial kind of storm. And we assessed that the 1031 exchange wasn't their friend. In fact, it was their enemy. And we identified that they had overpaid for properties and they had too much debt, not enough liquidity, not enough diversification. And so it became clear to us that something had to change, and we wanted to figure that out. And so I went along with my day, and all of a sudden my manager brought in a gentleman who spoke on something called the Deferred Sales Trust. And not to be confused with the Delaware Statutory Trust or a TIC or tenant in common, but something that's entirely transformational when it comes to exit planning. And like most people, we thought it was too good to be true. We thought we were the Navy SEALs of multifamily investment real estate brokers, 1031 exchanges. We had this whole thing figured out. And he's coming in telling us there's a new thing and that it works, and it could have saved a lot of the pain from a lot of your clients. And so I was open-minded enough to explore it, and that's where I began cold calling people, talking about it, talking to CPAs. Most people laughed, and they said, it doesn't sound legal, it doesn't sound real. Call me when you have some deals closed, come back to me in a couple of years when I actually have equity. A lot of equity was still very low. And so, but I just kept pressing through, and I kept believing that this was like the Netflix version of exit planning. And fast forward, my business started to grow. All of a sudden, I started to get meetings with people I never thought I would meet with before. And I started to get more listings, more opportunities. And I was able to retire from the Cheesecake Factory. And now I just coach and train people how to do this. And I still broker deals here locally in Sacramento and invest as well for people who are going to be doing the Deferred Sales Trust mainly. And we'll do the occasional 1031 exchange when it makes sense. But now, we got a book launching here soon with some big names, and we just spoke at the Best Ever Conference. And so I just train and coach people on the Deferred Sales Trust on how it could transform their exit planning and help them create and preserve more wealth.
Awesome. I love that. What a great story. And Obviously 08 was hard for a lot of people, but it's always awesome when you hear, kind of come out the other end, which you guys did. So let's get into it. Give us, kind of start high level. What is this tool and what is it used for?
Yeah, deferred sales trust is just an installment sale based upon IRC 453, which is the tax code, where Jonathan or me or you or anyone who's listening to this, if they own a highly appreciated asset, you can defer the tax by becoming the lender. And so, easy example, we just did a $5 million exit of a multifamily property in Colorado for a client who had zero basis and no debt. Their first option could have been to just carry back paper for that buyer. The buyer could have put $1 million down and they could have carried back $4 million. On that $4 million, they're in a deferral state until they receive that $4 million back from that buyer. But instead, they decided to do an installment sale with the trust, and they asked the buyer to come with all the cash. And so essentially, they lent the $5 million to the trust, or they sold the asset to the trust in exchange for a promissory note, 100% financing. And then the trust turned around and sold it to the ultimate buyer, who came with all cash at closing, got a loan. Doesn't really matter how they come with cash. They take the property, they're gone, and the smoke clears, and the funds are sitting in the trust, owed back to the original seller, plus a rate of return, typically about 8%, sometimes 7, sometimes 6, compounding over any 10-year period of time. And the trust slowly starts to pay them back, and then they'll pay tax slowly over time. But what's really unique about this whole scenario is now they have some freedom, and there's really kind of 3 to 4 freedoms on this. Not only do they have financial freedom, which is part of what they built up their wealth for, which is a lot of what we talk about. Your cash flow, your passive cash flow is exceeding your expenses and then some to give you some margin. But they also had time freedom now, right? Because they're no longer tied to having to manage the property management or the deal or the toilets, trash, and liability. Then they also had what's called location freedom. They no longer need to be, either close to the property or fly to the property because they don't have to own any property anymore. And then the most important one, I think, and most exciting one is what's called entrepreneurial freedom, right? As entrepreneurs, we want to be able to strike when the iron's hot, when deals make sense. And with the deferred sales trust, there's no timing restrictions. There's no 45-day, 180, shotgun wedding, running around with your hair on fire, overpaying for properties. In fact, the funds can just sit in the bank. And now they can also go to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, hard money lending, passive or active real estate deals. But the point is your powder is dry, they are out of debt, and they're just being patient because guess what? Cap rates are pretty low right now. Value add multifamily properties are hard to find. So for them, it was a way to preserve, get their powder dry, and be able to strike. The last really important thing, which for them, most people overlook, has to do with estate tax. And so their estate was over 25 million, and they're married, and they're in their mid 50s ish. They have a lot of runway left, and they're looking at this estate tax of over 40% of anything above 22 million. Now, right now is only about 3, but they're looking to grow that substantially over the years. And so they were able to exit that 5 million outside of their taxable estate, which is going to eliminate 40% death tax. And so these are all the things that we do, and the best illustration I have for it is kind of like in a Rubik's Cube, Jonathan. I don't know if you have one of these things, right? But people show up to us, and sometimes it's a little bit out of whack, right? The colors are a little off. They have some different scenarios. And part of what we do is we just try to solve that problem. We try to work with their professionals. We try to clarify their basis, their debt, their needs, their goals, what their overall financial plan is. And ideally, we get as congruent on every side with all of the colors, again, so they can create and preserve more wealth, give to the charities they believe in if they want to give to charity, and not have to give their hard-earned money so quickly to the government so that they can create and preserve more wealth.
Absolutely. Wow, I love that. Okay, so a lot of questions, to be honest with you, but we'll kind of break it down here. So they put in the deferred sales trust. It acts just like a regular trust, right? Just like as if you were going to go start a trust. It operates the same way. It's its own entity, all of that.
Correct. It's a business trust. I don't want to say a regular trust because
Right.
most people, when they think trust, they think of like just a living trust, which is like probate. But think of it like a C Corp. It has its own EIN. It's its own entity, right? And so that is step one, coupled with an installment sale, right? And then there's a third party unrelated trustee. That's me. But yeah, that is step one, forming a trust that is with a third party unrelated trustee, that it's its own entity that's separate from them. They don't own the trust. They're lending the funds to the trust. So yeah, that is step one.
Got it. Okay. So they're not even trustees of the Okay.
That's how we can keep the tax deferral, right? Because if Jonathan just sold to his cousin down the street, right, or he was the trustee down the street, right, there's too much control there, Jonathan. The government says, no, you're really just controlling that, Jonathan, or your brother-in-law, or your best man in your wedding, or your whatever, right? Your former employee or your secretary. So it's got to be third-party, unrelated trustee. But which, by the way, it's not uncommon like an exchange accommodator, right? We do this all the time with exchange accommodators, or even IRA companies or 401k companies. These are third-party companies that aren't related to us. It has like a custodian over the account, right, or an accommodator. So that's my role. We're kind of like an IRA company. We're kind of like a 401k company. We're kind of like a 1031 company, but we're not any of those. We're a deferred sales trust trustee company that acts as the trustee.
Got it. And then they can come to you for any distributions anytime. There's no. So how do those distributions appear in the eyes of the IRS? Does it depend on what they use it for, or is it always, ordinary income, or what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, so the distributions are set up always in the beginning. It's like a set schedule. At any point, it's set and ready to pay them back. And then it can be adjusted over time, kind of like a refinance. But yeah, that's what they own. The asset they own is the promissory note, right? They become the lender, right? And so by the way, that can be put inside of your living trust, and that can pass to your kids, and your kids can step into your shoes, and you can keep this thing going for decades, right? And your kids can keep it going as well. So yeah, and as they receive income back, if it's interest payments, they'll pay ordinary income tax on that. If they receive principal, they'll pay capital gains tax. It's interest out first. They'll get a 1099 reported to their CPA. It's simple there. And then in the meantime, we can start investing in passive or active real estate deals, ground up development, hard money lending, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. It's really cryptocurrency. It's really flexible.
So when you invest, is that considered a distribution or?
Nope.
Wow. So that's the power of it right there, is that you just invest inside the entity. Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
It's kind of like an IRA in that sense, right? The income that it's earning, as well as the capital gains tax that it's deferred, it can grow, right? And so it's really powerful. That's why by the way, we need $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain. It's got to be big enough to make all of the wheels turn in a really great way per transaction, unless you have 2 or more assets at 500 each. But as long as it's big enough, Jonathan, the numbers just are a home run, because it's typically 25 to 50% of the gain is getting wiped out by capital gains tax and depreciation recapture. So yeah, as long as the math hits up front, then the rest of it kind of takes care of itself, as long as we have some decent investments and we have a longer term horizon, and they don't need to spend it on all this personal stuff like a primary home or a boat of their own. If they want, they can take a distribution of that and just pay their tax. But otherwise, it's a really efficient, elegant way to grow your wealth.
Awesome. I love that. And if I understand correctly, you can also use this in the crypto space as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's actually our most exciting thing right now. We really want to serve the cryptocurrency owners out there, crypto millionaires. So can the deferred sales trust be used for exiting crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum? The answer is yes. Step 1, you form a trust. Step 2, you transfer the Bitcoin or the Ethereum or the coin to that newly formed trust account inside of like Kraken is the main one we use. Step 3, you just have that account, sell it to cash, then it sends it to the bank account, and then you get a promissory note. And so yeah, we've done about $12.5 million so far, and we have about $400 or $500 million in the pipeline right now. Some people are waiting for the values to jump back up. But yeah, we've done it for a Bitcoin client who did $5 million exit of her $50 million. Another one, it was Ethereum. He bought it for $100,000, went to $13 million. He exited $7.5 million of that. And so all tax deferred, diversify, sell high, buy low. You can get back in. It's really a beautiful thing.
Wow. That's incredible. Love that. What are any misconceptions around the DST?
Yeah, the biggest misconception with the DST, there's a couple. Number one is just like, man, it seems too good to be true. Like, seems like my CPA would have told me about it. It seems like it may not be legal, or it seems like, like why isn't everyone doing this, right? Which we would say, well, thousands of closes, billions under management, 6-year track record, and we're closing about a deal a week. We just did a $12.75 million deal in San Diego last week. We did, it was a car wash development, commercial real estate deal. We did the Bitcoin cases that we talked about. We did a primary home out of Palo Alto, $8.3 million. We're closing deals all over the country. Did one in Colorado, Texas, Connecticut. But most people just don't know about it because they haven't met us yet, honestly, and or their CPAs or their tax people are so busy doing what they're doing that they haven't had time to review it. But we have found as soon as you bring in the trusted professionals to meet with our trusted professionals. 9 out of 10 times they end up joining us. And like, this is really great. They got to sign the NDAs. We don't give our secrets away, right? We protect this. And we protect it for 2 reasons. One, we don't want competition, but number 2, we don't want people to take this and abuse it. And the next thing for all of this is understanding that there's been some very large institutions, individuals, companies that have reviewed this, including national law firms, including like, movie stars that have done this and had their tax teams look at this, billionaires that have done this. But the one that's really compelling for me is a guy named David Young, who ran with a guy named Bill Gross. And in the commercial real estate world, we may not know those names. Maybe like a Mark Cuban, Jonathan, of like the financial advising world. And anyways, these guys are some of the world-class, top of their game. And they ran a company or built a company called PIMCO with about 5 other guys from 80 billion to 1.2 trillion. They did this over an amount of years ago. Well, they all retired from PIMCO. 4 of the 5 guys form a group called Anfield Capital. And about 4 years ago, they get approached with the Deferred Sales Trust. Like most of us, they're like, wow, this sounds amazing. We got to really check this thing out. Like, I mean, they get approached with a lot of things, and they are open-minded, and they did their due diligence, and they didn't do a 2-day or 2-week or 2-month. They did a 2-year due diligence on the entire structure, talk with clients, the banks, had their legal team look at it, fly back, sign the NDAs, sit down with the tax attorney and map it all out, all the boxes, all the numbers, everything, right? And after 2 years, they came through with 2 conclusions. Number 1, that might be the smartest person we've ever met. That's one of my business partners. He's the tax attorney who created this. Number 2, we're all in. We'll become a part of the DST inner circle, and we'll put our name on this. And they're a part of the advisory team for Deferred Sales Trust clients of ours. And what's cool about that is this is like a world-class guys in due diligence, economists, money managers. And if they put their name on it, the question is it good enough for Jonathan and Brett and anyone else who's listening to this, right? Regardless if your CPA had heard of this. And that's really the thing. Like the CPA that's helped you go from 0 to $1 million or 1 to 5 million, even 5 to 10 or 15 million or 50 million, whatever. It's not the same CPA perhaps to help you exit highly appreciated assets. They help you build the business. They've helped you report your taxes, but they might not be expert planners when it comes to capital gains tax. And that's where we come in as experts and with a proven track record to help everybody overcome that false belief of it's too good to be true.
Awesome. I love that. You nailed it on the head, right? Just like, my brother does malpractice law. I wouldn't go to him to write up my, PPM for a syndication.
Exactly right. And that's the key, right? And we do all this at no cost, no obligation due diligence. So you can come in and bring all your tough questions, and people are calling us with 30 days to go or 10 days to go, or hopefully you're getting with us earlier. And no cost, no obligation, we'll run through it. We'll give you a side-by-side comparison. Again, 9 out of 10 people, once they see it, and if their deal's big enough and they have time to digest this, they say yes, right? Because guess what? It's no longer about cash flow. It's about tax flow. Why? Because taxes are $30 trillion. The government has a big nugget to pay off, right? And they're going to have to raise taxes to do that. And so the incentive here is how do we use the laws that are on the books to defer the tax and grow our wealth? And so using the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing way to do that.
So if I understand here correctly, and couldn't agree more, but your business partner created this? Is that kind of what I heard you allude to? Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
He's a tax attorney, CPA tax attorney. Yep, he created it.
And just
my role is the trustee. So I'm like the nurse that does the ongoing maintenance and management. He's the one who's in the surgery putting everything together.
So he just studied the tax law and kind of figured out that there was a potential for this vehicle, or is this a secret that you can't reveal?
It's really interesting. I mean, I can tell you a lot of the stuff, right? But we can't, we don't give certain things, but yeah, he actually was working for Arthur Andersen. It's a really cool story that he tells. And, he's the smartest person I've ever met. He's just brilliant. And people have asked him, like, how did you come up with this? And he goes, I just saw it one day. He goes, what does that mean? He goes, well, and he goes, he doesn't mean to like sound like, he's really humble. He didn't mean to sound like odd. He goes, I don't know. How does like Picasso or Van Gogh or Beethoven, how do they come up with their thing? Right. Like that's how brilliant he is. I call him this, like the Bill Gates of tax deferral. And he was doing all this international mergers and acquisitions and all these different deals and all this tax stuff. And he's on campus with some of the smartest people when it comes to tax in the world. And he's immersed in it. And this is like, 30 years ago. And he's practicing. And then he started to put the pieces together. He goes, if I put this with this with this, and at first it was like beta. He's like, do I think it's going to work? I think it's going to work, but he didn't know for sure. right? And so, but he goes, let's try it. And he started trying with his clients, and then he started to grow and grow and grow. And fast forward, it's like, this is really working. We can take this even bigger if we license it and make it protect it, right? And then it passed all the IRS audits, which is really important because I get people who call me, Jonathan. They're like, "Hey, I got this thing. You know, I think Brett, your capital gains tax solutions. Like, I think you should look at this thing." And I'm like, "Hey, I'll look at it. I'm always open minded, but I got to ask you a couple questions. Like, has it been tested by the IRS? Well, no, it hasn't yet. Well, okay. Well, how many have you done? Well, we've done a couple hundred. Okay, how long have you been doing it? A couple years. Okay, well, there's been no tests. Like I don't want to jump into something that hasn't had been through the fire. So the deferred sales trust is thousands of closes, billions under management, over a dozen no change IRS audits, including additional formal audits. And then there's lifetime audit defense provided by the attorney. And so it's literally batting 1,000. It's perfect, right? It's never lost. And so that's the foundation that we like to help people know that it's rock solid. Doesn't mean that the government couldn't change something and shut it down, but so far they haven't done it, and we just keep doing it until and we don't think they will either because it's IRC 453. It's an installment sale. They want to incentivize us to do transactions. They don't want to disincentivize people from unlocking their capital on this highly appreciated and redeploying it into the economy, which builds more jobs and more wealth. So that's kind of the story.
Awesome. I love that. That's incredible. So that makes it also explains why, not a lot of people really talking about it. Obviously you guys are, big in the education, starting to speak and really bring it to light. So I guess let's kind of walk through an ideal scenario here. What does the whole process look like? What's an ideal, time to exit, to come to you guys and kind of start this? And what does it look like?
Yeah. So if you want to take the next steps, is first of all, just clarifying your wealth plan. And that, again, that's your time, that's your location, that's your financial plan, that's your entrepreneurial journey, and clarifying what that looks like. And again, I use the Rubik's Cube. Like it could be all disjointed right now. And you have an ideal, what does that look like? Like clarify that vision. And then second, reverse engineer how you're going to get there on the exit of your assets. And I say plural because you can move multiple assets into the one trust and have multiple promissory notes. And then from there, it's imagine of where and how would you like to invest the funds. And again, you sit down with us for a consultation call for 30, 40 minutes. You clarify some of these things. You look at your adjusted basis, your current debt, and your current potential exit price. And with those three numbers, we can kind of give you a rough estimate of what your tax liability is going to be. And then we just map out how we get there. Do we use a partial Delaware statutory trust for some mortgage over basis, like a deal we just did in Denver for about a $4 million multifamily sale, then the rest of it into a deferred sales trust? Do you do some of it via 1031 exchange if you can find a deal? We can also save a failed 1031 exchange. Right, we can be a backup plan for people as well. So, because some people are still like, hey, I still want to get a chance at this thing. Okay, cool. We'll be a backup plan for you. So it's all customized to the individual. But once you clarify those things, know that you have at least $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain, or 2 transactions that qualify at 500 each to combine to those. Then we just set up the trust. We set up the bank account for the trust. We draft the promissory note. You transfer it into the trust, or you sign your interest in whatever asset that you have prior to exiting, which is very important. The timing is very important. Like if you've already taken the capital, the deal is already closed escrow, it's too late. But as long as there's some contingencies remaining in the contract, there's still time to set up the trust prior to. We just have to review that contract. But if it's cryptocurrency or a primary home or a business sale, we've definitely got to do it early on. Right, prior to the buyer removing contingencies or prior to you making any exits. If it's a 1031 exchange, we can work with accommodators, but realize not every 1031 exchange accommodator wants you to know about this. In fact, most either don't know or don't want to know because we are competitors with them. And so work with accommodators, and we have those that are ready to go for you and can give you both options.
Awesome. Wow, I love that. So you guys really make it as simple as possible, and that's incredible. So you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, obviously very legal IRS code. Any legislation you're keeping an eye on that could potentially hinder this at all?
It's just the opposite. Like they were talking about taking away the 1031 exchange, which means we would have been, to us, really the only game in town that has this 26-year track record, thousands of closes, billions under management, right? And they didn't take it away, and that's a good thing because I'm a commercial real estate broker and investor, and I think I'm glad it stayed. But no, it's not even on the radar, right? It's not even close. And so there's nothing that is really making us think differently. They talked about taking away the stepped up basis, which again would have helped us as well, because now a lot of people want to do just 1031 swap until you drop, right? And then the kids get the stepped up basis and they can walk away capital gains tax free because they get a new basis there if they sell right away. But yeah, that would just send us a ton of business. So there's nothing on the radar that is threatening us at all at this point.
Awesome. Love that. And you guys are you said only game in town, only ones who are doing this?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple trustees out there, right? And then there's like thousands of business professionals that we work with, but there's only one law firm that it all rolls to. Yeah, it's not like there's 5,000 QI companies out there that are all, selling the same thing. It's not a commodity, it's specialized. And more than that, it's not just people knowing about it, it's people actually doing the deals on literally every single day. This is all we do. We're hyper specialized and just assessing deals, going through deals and closing the deals. And so it's one thing to hey, I know about a strategy, right? But it's another thing to actually be closing them and helping people do that. So that's one of my passions, is to help the high net worth individual do that, or the commercial real estate syndicator, or the cryptocurrency expert, to help train and coach them how to help their clients with this.
Awesome. I love that. That's incredible. Well, I've appreciated your insight and your perspective. Let's jump into the final 5. It's the last 5 questions I ask all of my guests. What's the best advice you've gotten from a mentor?
Okay. Well, I guess it could be, it could be business and it could be life. So I would say, we'll start with business, learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job, right? If we work hard on your job, you'll make a living and that's fine. But if you work harder on yourself, you'll make a fortune. And the idea is not just to make a bunch of money, although that's really cool. The idea is to become everything you're created to be, so you can be more of a blessing to others in your family and those around you. And that's by focusing on some of the major areas: your finances, your faith, your family, your fitness, your personal development, your leadership, and your spiritual walk. And if you can work harder on focus on growing those areas, the rest of it will take care of itself. Most of us, we go to high school, we want to get the A's and the B's, we want to get the college degree, we want to get maybe the job, or start the company and make that first million or close that first deal or whatever. Those are all external things, and that's like career or maybe money focused, which is one part of the major parts of your life. But if we spent more time working harder on the other areas, like building our character and our leadership and our health and our finances and our faith, the rest of it takes care of itself. And so I wish I would have learned that at a younger age. And then as far as, just keeping the major things major, right? Like really it comes down to me, it's my faith and then it's my family. Like those are the majors, right? And the rest of it too are kind of sub little more minor, right? So just keeping the majors and not getting, distracted with a lot of distractions that are thrown at us every day.
Awesome. I love that. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. What is it about your career that makes you feel like you're fulfilling your why?
Yeah, so I think we've all been given certain gifts to be a blessing and help to others in this life. And so, part of those gifts that I've been giving is to be encouraging and to challenge others to be the best and to have some of the best outcomes for themselves. And growing up in college and high school, playing football and basketball, and then college basketball, I've always loved excelling at a high level and helping others do the same. And so it's identifying that gift and then using and then maximizing the potential of that gift. And then the next thing is impacting other people. And we do that through podcasts, through YouTubes, through coaching, and through, speaking at conferences to encourage others to do the same. And the last part of that is having a higher vision and focus that it's for a higher purpose. That I'm here for a reason beyond just this life, and that's to make an impact into others' lives and using the gifts I've been given. So yeah, that's how I know that I'm accomplishing my why, and all of that equals success or fulfillment. If you're missing one of those pieces, like you're not sure if you're identifying your gifts, if you're not sure if you're maximizing the potential of those gifts, or maybe some people are just working on all their weaknesses and not focusing on the thing they've been given, right? Because I was the I was the A and B student, but I wasn't the straight A student. I was the more entrepreneur, push back, do things outside the box. And that wasn't, and I was like, I'll go to college and get the degree. But I appreciated those things. And sports was a big part of my life and being competitive. But, you don't know that I was going to be in sales. I didn't know I was going to be in the tax world. I didn't know I was going to sell real estate. But you start to identify these gifts and then just pour into those is really what I would say. And then take a leap, like go start a podcast, go start a YouTube channel, Go out of your comfort zone. The first time I got on video, I was terrified, right? But I had a vision and to go make an impact on more people. Because before I would just cold call people. I'd be like, I'm just going to cold call people and tell them about this deferred sales trust thing. And they're going to all come flocking. And they're like, I've been doing this for 10 or 20 years. Like, you're telling me something new, come back to me in 5 or 10 years, right? And so it's like, maybe if I go to the masses and I coach and train and just close and share that journey, they'll come to me. And that's what kind of has changed that whole thing, if that makes sense, Jonathan, is doing what we're doing now.
Absolutely. I love that. Incredible insight. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so true. I remember my first probably, 5 podcast episodes. I was stiff, like my neck would hurt. I was so scared. Now I've almost done 100 episodes and it's just like, I'm able to just carry on a conversation. It's so great. Favorite non-real estate or investment related book?
Favorite non-real estate or investment related book? Okay, well, non-real estate would be The Seasons of Life. It's by Jim Rohn. It talks about the spring, summer, winter, fall, and how we're constantly in a flux with different areas of our life: our finances, our faith, our relationships, our career, personal development. And it's important to identify if we're in a winter or if we're in a spring or summer or fall, and there's things that you can do to help aid in the next part of your growth. And it's okay to be in these. We're not always going to be in spring and summer, right? It's okay to know that sometimes winter is going to come. Sometimes fall is going to come. And we've all maybe experienced some winters and some falls, especially the last couple of years with COVID, right? What's been going on. But there's certain things you can be doing, such as being grateful, such as, meditation, such as, with doubling down on growing your faith and your relationships and different things that help you to keep it in perspective, which I think is a great book. It's actually a really short read, but it's one of those ones you can just keep diving into to get inspiration and some perseverance built up inside of you. So that would be that one. I think other non-investment related book. Here's one I'm reading right now that's really great. Anything by John Maxwell. So this is called The Leader's Greatest Return. And it's about developing and multiplying leaders. And so as entrepreneurs, we're constantly in the state of, how do I delegate decisions? How do I delegate work? How do I be more in the design mode and more in the delegate mode versus doing the work and deciding the work? And because we as leaders, we're the captor to the organization's growth. And so to the extent that we can grow as leaders and help others grow as leaders is the extent that we actually grow and can help more people. So this is a really great book on how to do that.
Awesome. I love it. Definitely going to add it to the list. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
If I could have any superpower, what would it be? I think it would be like go back in time, like time travel, man. I think that would be pretty cool to try to, my wife's watching some show. What's it called? I don't know. They're out in Ireland, but now they're in North Carolina, and it's some show, but they travel through like time. And like one of them, they traveled to the not the Civil War, but the Revolutionary War, right? And so they could be there where the Tea Party happened, and I was like, oh, that's fascinating. Like if I can go back in time to these key moments, right, and like try to make a difference, or that would be really cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Cool. Last one. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you and learn more?
Yeah, they can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Capital Gains Tax Solutions. You can check out our new book that's coming out. It's called The Building a Tax-Deferred Exit Strategy, the proven playbook for unlocking your ideal wealth plan for yourself when selling, or yourself or any clients when selling any assets of highly appreciate it. And we have people like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank that's in the book. We have some other multifamily syndicators, really smart people, and mobile home park investors. And so it's really going to be, I think, hopefully a bestseller. Because it wasn't just me, it was all these other really smart people, and we're weaving in the deferred sales trust and how to unlock it, overcoming false beliefs of what it is, what it's not, and then how to invest, how to build wealth. And again, it's not just about cash flow, it's about tax flow. So go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can also find me there.
Brett, thank you so much. Seriously, your passion is it's energizing. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insight.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Absolutely. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Listen, I know it's cliche and you hear it all the time, but please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. Even though this is technically a daily podcast, you know it's coming out the next day. We have a ton of content coming your way. So please like and subscribe. It helps a ton. Leave comments. We'd love to know what you guys think. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.